Now, if I was able to get my hands on an authentic vintage pattern that met my size criteria, hands down, I would. Hello, friends, and welcome back to another week. I am actually a little giddy today. The weather has finally broken. It's finally sweater weather here in Central Florida. And for me, that means I am finally going to work on a project that has been in my noggin for literally forever. But since moving back to Florida, I've postponed it because I kind of struggle with the notion of wearing heavier weight clothes. And while our weather does break, like for us, it's been in the 60s, and so since our weather has finally broken, I really, really want to make a pair of train overalls. This is something, I kid you not, I have wanted to do it for years. I'm absolutely in love. I don't know. I'm weird. I have loved this fun little nod to the past for literally forever. Probably since I was a little kid, because people who work the Walt Disney World Railroad wear them, and it has just been like, I don't know if you guys have that thing, that weird thing where you have to have something. If I wanted to buy them, I would have to probably go with something like Dickies, which still makes them. And from what I can tell, they're very similar. But I don't necessarily love wearing a men's cut on my body type. And I can find the red ones that I really, really want in Oshkosh Bagosh. But that's not gonna work. And I definitely want to make them in a vintage 1940s cut. Since I already own it, I am heavily contemplating using the extremely polarizing Simplicity 8447. Now, if I was able to get my hands on an authentic vintage pattern that met my size criteria, hands down, I would. I have even seen that there are a lot of fantastic replicas out there that are better quality replicas of this vintage pattern that isn't Simplicity's. But since I already own it and I don't have the budget to go out and buy another pattern, I'm going to work with what I have. I will make the adjustments and changes to make it a little bit more authentic, or the changes that I want as I go. But I definitely will be making changes to it to make it a little bit closer to what I want. One of the number one complaints that a lot of people who make it is the width of the legs is too skinny for what the pattern should have been. And I think overall, a lot of people find that the bib width needs tweaking and adjusting, but I'm going to give it a whirl and see where we end up. I genuinely think I'm going to make mock-ups on this one because I have not made this pattern, and that makes me nervous. Let's get sewing. I need help. Fun help. Okay, so here are the pants portion of these. I am still wearing my yoga pants underneath because this fabric is super, super see-through, and I've just got it pinned where the buttons will go. I can't really tell without having added the bodice yet if this is a good fit or not. Alright, so I definitely feel like it is snug in this portion of my tum-tum, but that could just be the fact that I'm using this like cotton poly blend garbage. And it also may be a little too high in the waist. I think that I'll be able to tell better once the bodice is attached. I can't see my butt. You guys are just going to have to tell me how the back looks, and I'll trust you. I like the crotch line. I like where the waist hits me, but this is way too big. This section here is just way too big. Like, woohoo! Let's pin it in place on top of my t-shirt. Here. And here. That way I don't get any shifting whatsoever. If I take this dart all the way to here, I'm going to get a lot of whiskering right here. So if I add a second dart, I want to be able to transfer these new set of darts onto my pattern. So I'm going to use my Fix-On pen to just kind of make all of my notes directly on this fabric. And so there's my new dart line. That I will transfer to my tissue. So these are my original darts. This is my new second set of darts. Okay, at this point, it is super dark outside. I am completely out of natural light, and so I am calling it. I will tackle whatever changes I want to make to this tomorrow morning. Good morning. Okay, after spending the entire night noodling everything that I've done here, I like what I have decided on as far as the fit and the changes. I kind of went through a process of, could I just take this extra width out of this by changing that center fold? And the reality is just doing a full bust adjustment dart as a second dart here really was the one thing that I loved the cut of. As far as everything else on this, I'm going to stick with it. I did try it on without yoga pants underneath. It's a little see-through, but it at least gave me the feel of what this is going to fit like. The other decision that I've made is that this needs pockets. It needs pockets like jean pockets. I don't like the patch pocket that's just on the front, like the front pelvis region. I don't love that. I genuinely think I want to change the pattern so it has more of a jeans pocket. I think the hardest part of that is going to be cutting out the pocket backing in a way that my stripes line up. I think that's really going to be the only hard part about that. The other change that I am definitely going to make is the straps currently button in the back. I have a hard enough time with my dexterity as it is. I'm flipping it so that they button in the front. I may also add a little bit of width in the exterior of these pant legs. A couple of the patterns that I were coming across that were authentic 1940s jeans patterns was where the front and the back was one piece, and this seam was actually a fold. And so that makes that a straight line. And so I might do that with these. While I'm not going to necessarily cut these so that it's one piece, I'm definitely thinking I'm going to straighten out this line so that it has that shape. All right, let's get working on these changes. So to make this, I am using cotton ticking. I got it on sale for roughly $3.50 a yard. So this makes it the perfect price point that it's still way cheaper than if I had bought a pair of these overalls. And then because this is roughly the same structural integrity and weight as denim, I'm going to go ahead and use denim threads and treat this as if I was working with denim. Now, because I made a major shape change to this bodice, I either have to change the shape of my facing, or, here's the big or I just line this. And I think it would be super cute if I just line it with a quilting cotton. I think that would be really adorable. And I got this quilting cotton as a remnant. The last time that I was in Joann's, I think I paid like $1 and change for it because it was 50% off for Veterans Day. And then because it was a remnant, it was another 75% off. So I think I got this whole yard whatever piece for like $1 and change. And it's really cute. It's not Christmassy. It's just really winter forest with which kind of jives with my train theme. You know, Polar Express, trains, drives through the woods. I don't know. I definitely want to add pockets to the front of these pants. The little patch pockets that are on the tushy isn't enough for me personally. And I've done a little bit of digging. There are definitely options out there that have better pockets. The Wearing History pattern has a really cute, thick, big, deep pocket that's also a patch pocket. I've also seen a few other Etsy sellers who have more of a dungaree style pocket. And when I was looking for authentic photographs and magazine clippings, all three options, the two different shaped patch pockets and inset pockets, all seem to be authentic to the period. So I think that no matter what I decide, I'm still at least going to be authentically accurate. It may not be true to the original simplicity pattern that I'm necessarily creating, but it still works for those 1940s overalls as being accurate. At the same time, I don't know that I 100% care about authentically accurate. Like, I just want to have fun with this and I want cute overalls. If they are, great. If not, I'm still not going to crop. But anyway, so I think what I'm deciding to do is to go with the oversized patchy type pockets that are an option with the Wearing History version of this exact pattern. The reason that I like that one is because it doesn't mess at all with the dart. In fact, the dart is still there, it just hides it. To make my patch pockets, I first started out by tracing the pants front pattern piece so that I could work on that. I then started sketching the exact size and shape that I wanted the pocket to be. And once I had that, I just added my 5/8 seam allowance. Okay, after playing and sketching a few times, I came up with a nice wide deep pocket with a little handy hold. I put my seam allowances in on all four sides. This should give me a nice a nice thick chunky pocket that will be a patch. I think the hardest part about that is going to be matching my stripes. To fussy cut my pockets, I laid a scrap of fabric on top of my pattern piece, lining up all of my stripes exactly as so. This pin right here and this pin right here represent the center of the bib, like that. But I'm not catching the underlayer. Okay. So that'll pick up with me. Now my pocket, I fold in half. And so this is where my pocket piece gets pinned onto this piece of fabric. So now in theory, this should be perfectly lined up with the center of the bib. So now I'm gonna go do the same thing on all 4 pockets. I am gonna have to do them separately just in case that in cutting my fabric out folded in half, my lines aren't perfectly identical. They're definitely straight, but they may not be perfectly identical. Because I fussy cut all of my pockets, I don't want to accidentally get them like mixed up and put in the wrong place. So I pinned each pocket to its coordinating piece, and then I will assemble each one on its own instead of batching them. So I've got everything all cut out, and for the most part, it's pretty easy to assemble. There are not a lot of pieces. We've got pants front and back, bodice front and back, straps, waistband, and those are the button facings. So pretty straightforward. And then I've got each associated pocket pinned to its regular piece, which is why they're not just sitting there. All right. I am exhausted. I'm very quickly running out of daylight. So, thus far, I have bodice and the bodice lining, and everything's just waiting for top stitching. I've also got pockets, pocket, 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 and shoulder straps that are also done and waiting top stitching. Everything else is going to have to wait until tomorrow. This whole running out of daylight pretty early thing is making it hard to film, making it hard to see what I'm doing accurately. So hopefully tomorrow I can get my button gear a little faster. I have got to hit the ground running today. I have a whole lot of work to still do, and it's already Thursday. This thing is going real slow. I'm having a really hard time deciding if I want to put some darts into the pants next while I still have my interior thread, or do I want to switch out to my top stitching thread and get some of the top stitching done? I'm leaning towards that because I feel like I have less progress happening when I still have lots of pieces still laying around. So I think that that's what I am going to do. I'm going to switch over to my top stitching thread. I'm doing my top stitching in denim thread in red. In addition to top stitching all of my pockets and straps and all that, I am going to flat felt all of my seams just so that it reads more like jeans. So here is how my first finished pocket will look. I found this patch on Amazon. They custom made it and had it shipped to me the next day. I am so happy. Like, you actually get to pick the color, pick the thread. I will link it down below. But I thought that that was like the perfect addition to this. And so now I am going to proceed with doing the top stitching on everything else. Okay, I officially have all of my pockets top stitched. And can we take a moment to look at that pocket placement? Friends, oh my god! Check out that pocket placement, baby! Bam! Okay, now that all of my pockets are secure in place, I can actually go back up to the beginning of the pattern and do all of the things I was supposed to do. But because I decided to add a whole lot of pockets, I had to go out of order a little bit. But now I'm all caught up. Look here. So I've got this all pinned how I might potentially want it to be. And I have this problem with literally everything. The distance between my apex of my bust line and my shoulder is actually shorter than average. Normally what I do when I'm making something, and I'm sure you guys have seen me do this before, I take about 1 inch out of my shoulder seams on almost everything that I make. On this, however, I can either pull the straps in the back down lower, or I can raise my buttonholes. Those are both really viable options. Or I could go with overall buckles and just make my straps adjustable. Okay, I've messed around with this for a few minutes. I figured out where my buttons are going to be. And when I situate this on my back and lay it here, the gap between here and where the buttonhole actually is how much I need to take off the back. In theory. Very official measurements here, folks. So I've messed around with this for a little bit, and I've gone and taken off about 3.5 inches off of the length of the straps. Boop, boop. Everything's safety pinned in place right now because I don't want to make any permanent decisions before I know everything's going to work. And doing another dry fit. And so here is where my button will be. This is my buttonhole, and the objective is to get these to intersect, and they do. So let's pin that. And while I have some gaping, it's not enough for it to like completely fall off. So, and as usual, my left side is a little bit more droopy than my right. You can actually see that. And so I may take my left side in a little more. Say, what do you think? It's getting there. I've got my lining in and all stay-stitched. It's so pretty. I think I'm at the point where I can attach the waistband and do the pants. To attach the underlap, which is actually like a button placard, I'm not necessarily perfectly going by the little dots that they provided, simply because maybe the way that I stitched this attached may not necessarily also have been perfect. So, but to get the look of a perfect lineup, I'm putting my needle down in the same hole that my last stitch came out of. And so I'm starting in the same place. And then the fact that I lined my bodice doesn't really affect the underlap on this side because it ends with the seam. Okay, I just wanted to talk to you guys about a quick mistake that I made, and I didn't even process that I was making a mistake until the absolute very end of things, as I'm now like in the final stages of finishing things up. I flat felted all of my seams, and I realized that I flat faced them in the wrong direction. I was thinking about pocket bulk when I made the decision to press all of my seams to the back panel. However, now that I have the button placards in, I'm realizing they should have been pressed and flat felted the front pant panel. So you can actually see right here. Like, here's where I stopped flat felting in order to add the placard. And so on the front, it's all nicey, and I stopped just below the pocket right there, right? Well, now that my underlap is in, I'm realizing that the underlap forces all of my seams to the front panel. And so I'm having this happen. So I think what I'm going to do is clip my seam right here underneath the placard so that I can still press it and flat felt it backwards in line with the rest of the pant leg. But I think moving forward, if I make these again, I will flat felt everything towards the front. And hopefully you guys can learn from my mistake. Okay, I have got my buttonhole placards on. I've got my underlap on. I'll give you guys a quickie look at that. So that's how that all looks. I did slip stitch all of this, even though I knew I was going to be top stitching, because I wasn't going to be 100% sure I would actually catch right here. I did catch, but it's all slip stitched too, just in case. And then you can see my top stitching. This is the understitching that you do. And then that's the double top stitch. So all I have left at this point is my buttonholes and attaching my buttons. The pattern actually calls for 5/8 inch buttons, and so I bought these. They're very basic red. They match just fine. But on an absolute whim, I found that I happen to have in my inventory actual jean buttons, and so I'm going to use these instead. The only real difference is that I have to make my buttonholes just a little bit bigger, and that's easy enough. But because my buttonholes are a little bit bigger, so I shifted them a little bit closer to the edge. That way they're still centered on my button placard. So in doing a little bit of work on these buttons, I just wanted to share with you guys these Dritz buttons that come in the gold and blue packaging. I want to say have a 50% fail rating in that the peg literally just bends or snaps instead of inserting up into the button, where the ones in the gray and white packaging, so these are the ones in the gold packaging, they have a silver backing. The one in the white and gray packaging, the back of them are brass, just like the front. Had a 100% install success rate. In changing the product, they also changed whatever is up inside the button itself to accept the metal, if the metal pegs are made better. But either way, if you're buying these Dritz ones, make sure you have the one with the white and silver, white and gray packaging. Those have the higher success rates. Just a personal experience. And I did have to do a little repair work where one of these buttons failed. And so I put a little patch right here on both sides, and that allowed me to put the new successful button. See how that one is the brass backing? That one went in without any problem. But that little patch there is to fix the damage that did. Okay, final thoughts on these overalls are, I am in love. I want a dozen of them. I'm really happy that I took the time to make a mock-up because they are not too tight, not too loose. I'm really happy with the fact that I ended up doing the extra dart for the large cup adjustment. Things I will do differently the next time I make them is I am going to skip these pain in the ass denim buttons. As much as I thought they would be cute, they are, but I hated the process of installing them way more than I would have hated just sewing on regular buttons. Anything else that I might change moving forward, I don't know. I absolutely loved the fact that I took the time to do all of the double row top stitching, all of the bar tacks on the top of all of the pockets. Time consuming, but worth it. This is not an entry level pattern. It took me well over a week working on it almost every single day. It looks easy, but it's one of those things where all of the little different elements add up over time to make it a bigger project than it might seem. I genuinely can't say of whether it's identical to the original. I know a lot of the complaints is that it's not identical to the original. I haven't seen the original. It's a bit of a unicorn for me. Even if I could get my hands on a copy of the original, it wouldn't look exactly the same as what I need for my body type, because every single body is different. And so once you start factoring in all of the different adjustments that need to be made for the different sizes, grading genuinely does make things look differently. So, do I love the pattern? Yep. Am I thrilled with these? Yep. Will I do it again? Yep. Okay, my friends, thank you so much for hanging out with me this week. I very much so enjoyed making these vintage overalls, and I will see you guys next time for more shenanigans.